When the England Care Review came out in May of last year, it painted a picture of children's social care that was very familiar to anyone who works inside the sector. It described in vivid colours the pressures on local authorities who struggled and often failed to adequately meet the needs of children placed into their care. It spoke of child protection systems that were overwhelmed, provisions of placements that were in short supply, early family support services that were well intended but in reality were in crisis, and a care system that relied heavily on extended families who in turn received inadequate support and recognition. The report called for investment to bring services to a standard they need to be. And when I'm talking about investment, I'm talking about the kind of numbers that would make Elon Musk flinch. Josh McAllister, who led the care review, said that the government needed to invest £2.6 billion into children's social care. 2.6 billion. When the review was considered by the government, who hold the power and the purse strings to decide what recommendations from the report they would want to adopt, they agreed that change was needed. But, unsurprisingly, £2.6 billion of investment in a post-pandemic, post-Brexit, a war in Europe and a cost of living crisis period is not something they have the resources to support. Instead, they've committed to bringing £200 million to address the much needed reforms. Josh McAllister has been interviewed on many TV stations and in newspapers and in magazine reports since the government's decisions were announced. And you can see the disappointment in his eyes when he speaks. That's because he truly believes that change is needed, and that while he sees the government's commitments as a step in the right direction, it is, in his view, a step too slow and a step not far enough. But still, £200 million is a lot of money, even if it is only 10% of the amount the review recommended was needed. So what are the government hoping to achieve with this investment, and what does it mean for St Christopher's? And most importantly, what does this mean for the young people in our care? Well, the government have defined their response to the review within 6 key pillars of action. The first of which focuses on enabling children to thrive with their families. The care review suggested that without addressing the need to effectively support families to prevent children coming into care, numbers of looked after children would rise over the next 5 years to something approximately around 100,000. The cost of providing this care would then increase from £10 billion a year to more like £15 billion. And when you look at those numbers, suddenly £2 billion of investment sounds reasonable, and if successful, could in fact achieve some savings. Unsurprisingly then, the government has committed £45 million of the £200 million into development of better ways of working to support families to meet the needs of children and to prevent them from coming into the care system. Early intervention is not a new idea, and many initiatives have been rolled out over the years, including Sure Start and children's centres, many of which have later had funding removed or statutory requirements for their provisions have been withdrawn. And when local authorities experience periods of financial pressures, they will withdraw non-essential or non-statutory areas of practice. And early intervention has often been one such area that has received cuts over the years. At St Christopher's, we fully support the idea of keeping children at home with their families as long as it is safe and in their best interest to do so. We're already developing new ways of working on the Isle of Man to support children who are described as on the edge of care. And this is something we're also discussing with some London boroughs. And it's an area of our service offering that we may want to extend. How do we extend the care and the professional support that we give to our young people as they return home? And how do we support their families to meet their care and development needs? In real terms, for the young people we look after, this approach could mean better transitions in and out of the care system and better support for them and their families in accessing the right services at the right time. This should ensure more individual approaches that meet young people's needs and support the relationships that matter to them. The fourth pillar of the government's response is described as putting love, relationships and a stable home at the heart of being a child in care. It's almost as if they've taken St Christopher's philosophy of care and built their plans around it. And within the plans, they intend to invest in the development of a programme to support improvements in the quality of leadership and management in the children's home sector. Now, this will include exploring proposals for professional registration of the workforce and a leadership programme with a new knowledge and skills statement with accompanying continued professional development. Now, this sounds exactly like the St Christopher's Academy approach that we've already undertaken, and it's something we strongly encourage across the sector. Now, we've found that ensuring our approach is child-centred and with the ethos that they are the experts in their own life, we can help them to achieve more and grow, not only in confidence, but also in self-commitment to achieving their goals. The other big announcement is the development of regional care cooperatives, or RCCs, to plan, commission and deliver care places. The government say that they'll be co-designing, testing and evaluating this approach in 2 regional pathfinders, soon to be announced. And if successful, this could transform the way in which local authorities work across regions to jointly commission and fund children's services. We support any form of joined-up working. As done right, the positives for young people and their outcomes will be improved. There's also a raft of recommendations to improve the experiences of young people leaving care, including efforts to strengthen corporate parenting responsibilities, standing by the staying close and staying put initiatives, and working to create opportunities for children and young people in and leaving the care system to achieve their full potential. In many ways, I'm encouraged by what I read, largely because this reflects what we already know is in the best interest of children and young people. We know it because we're already doing it. This puts St Christopher's into a strong position to be able to support local authorities in their efforts to meet the new expectations that come with these changes and this investment.